we do not ever know who we are, because we are always in a process of becoming different from who we were a minute ago, or a day ago, or a year ago. But we are morphing at whatever rate of speed, and that is accelerating now with the increase of the extreme events in the world. And the sense of uncertainty and self-doubt is also much more extreme because of that morphing. And difference is taking the lead over identity as a force of internal power to affect our consciousness. And every time you learn something new, every piece of information you previously had that created your frame of reference about reality suddenly shifts. It has a different value. One new piece of information shifts the whole thing. Everything becomes different. In the same way that a Ptolemaic view of the universe, suddenly with Copernicus, with one shift in which the sun becomes the center rather than the earth, and the entire picture of the universe and our place in it, and the nature of humanity, etc., all cascade in a shift of collective consciousness into an entirely new paradigm. And in the same way, we have gone through many shifts, paradigm shifts, that have been, in a way, forced on us by the shifts in the governing ideological structures of the social orders in which we have been born into and indoctrinated into. So, let's see. Let me write. I'm going to call these the 7 core dualities. Clearly, you could, because of the nature of language is to structure all concepts in terms of pairs of opposites. You could add many more, like hot and cold, high and low, up and down, whatever. But these are the core dualities that are of, I think, psychological impact to either hold one in a place of perplexity and immobility in terms of continued development of consciousness versus the freedom to master the paradox that is involved in all of these. So we've seen that we are both in a state of identity and difference, and they are both different and not different from each other. And that eventually our identity becomes the capacity for creating differences and transcending them. Whether those differences appear in the world or in language or in the grid of meaning that we have superimposed upon reality. But the identity and difference become integrated, and then we realize that the duality of inner and outer are not actually separate. That what you perceive as an outer world is 99% made of your own projections. It's your inner world that comes back to you through karma. The outer world is not separate from your inner world. You think the ego wants to believe there's a self-standing world out there, and I relate to it with my own freedom and my own agency, etc. But no, the world gives birth to the subject, and the subject is constantly influenced by it and influences it, and is ultimately not different from the world, from nature, from the collective consciousness. We are embedded in it, and we have no identity ultimately different from that. And so once we are able to perceive that the outer world that the ego thinks it is perceiving is not external to our perception, it is our own mind that we are seeing writ large, expanded as world, but not other than that, including the character that we had been identified with is simply part of that panorama. So those two have to be integrated. Then, at first I had written freedom and dharma because there is always an ethic involved that constrains one's freedom. But in a larger sense, there are forces that determine our thoughts and our behavior. It's not necessarily the determinacy that physics can no longer find, but a kind of a sense that there has to be some sort of reliability and consistency in both in the behavior of the individual and the expectations that we can have of the world, or else it flies apart into chaos, and which is what is happening now because of the lack of trust that others will keep their promises, which you see writ large. Russia no longer believes that the U.S. Is worth negotiating with because they don't keep their promises. They break their treaties. There's no point in diplomacy or talking anymore. So you have this issue of freedom from rules and ethics versus the need for some kind of determination and order, even if you're not happy with the order that exists. And there has to be some orderly way of creating a new order without falling into chaos, which is one of those things that's basically in the air at this point. So then we have the duality of detachment and engagement, because we have when you reach a certain level of your essence, of your being, there is a natural care, the karuna that we have talked about, that wants to be of service, to function as a bodhisattva, and to be engaged. But there is also the desire to be emancipated from the bondage of engagement and to detach and to enter into solitude and a freedom that has no obligations to another, and has the ability to follow the calling of the heart, not of obligations created in the past, perhaps when one was not in touch with one's heart and one was acting inauthentically in accord with the demands of the big other, right? So there is this tension within between these two polarities, and there has to be a way for us to engage bodhisattvically with the world, but to do it in a state of total detachment and dispassion, but without losing our compassion and our capacity to care, because we are not caring for another, but we are always caring for the self. So when that is resolved, then we can resolve the duality between the part and the whole, because we are both. The term that science uses now is that we are holons. We are a part that contains the whole. and the whole contains every part as, not even as parts, but as essential essences within itself. This is, in fact, the definition of the hologram, which is why the holographic theory of the universe, I think, has become so popular and so scientifically validated, because there is a fractal capacity for an understanding of the whole in our intelligence, even though we cannot know the details of it, but we can know the essential nature that enables us to be in harmony, the part in harmony and resonance with the whole, because we are not different from it. And so it is that capacity to recognize the wholeness that is directing the particular, rather than the particular at odds with the whole or clueless about the whole, but the oneness of the part and the whole. And then, as we spoke of before, the yin and the yang, which shows up also on the archetypal level as Shakti and Shiva, if you will, the goddess and the god as the law of the Father. And these polarities must be internally harmonized so that one can relate harmoniously to all beings, regardless of their distribution of yin and yang and their self-presentation, either leading with yang or with yin, that there is a capacity to respond in complementarity rather than in opposition. And then finally, the duality of death. Here I wrote glory because we've been using that signifier, but meaning immortality, the eternal deathless self. And so we must live in conscious awareness of the mortality of the form and the non-mortality of the consciousness that is directing that form. And then recognize that the mortal is the manifestation of the immortal, and although it will be shed at the death of the body, it remains as an internal aspect of the evolution of consciousness of the soul vehicle through all of its permutations through time. And each vehicle has particular forms of wisdom that have been accumulated through experience. And by not rejecting or separating that wisdom, but letting go of the husk of its form, we keep the essence of that which the body signified as a vehicle of our fulfillment. And therefore, there's no rejection, there's no duality between the consciousness and the form, but the mental chatter that produced an interference pattern that prevented the full embodiment of the real self is eliminated, which is what allows that overcoming of that duality. Because there is no body, it is only a manifestation of a dream field that is produced by the creative intelligence of the self and is not different from that. Can you erase those so I can then go to the next thing I want to talk about? Thank you. So I think if one can recognize the presence of unresolved polarities within one's consciousness and one's attachment to one or another that keeps one from harmonizing and then letting go and moving into more complete levels of non-duality, then one is able to be in that state of freedom that we yearn for. So now I want to shift into speaking more directly about these two principal concepts of our duality that in a way include and transcend and epitomize all the other dualities. And that is the duality between being and becoming. And historically, the relationship of being and becoming that we have learned in culture has morphed in very extreme ways. So first I want to talk about the 7 historic shifts in the relationship of being and becoming.